All right, welcome back to another Wright podcast. I am Paul Stewart.
And I'm Brian Wright,
Still hanging on to that name, still hanging
Yes.
on, doing the right thing. So, Brian, big news, maybe a non-story, maybe it's been squashed already, but there was news that it could be prime time in the Big D, and we're talking about Dallas, Deion Sanders.
Yeah.
Were you a big fan of that song? Was it Joe Diffie?
It sounds like it should have been.
You don't mean Dallas. I can't believe what the judge had to tell us.
I did like the song.
It was Mark Chestnut. All
right, cut in there. Mark Chestnut. I should have known. I feel like you're the artist guy. Like you can recall like vivid facts. I speak kind of in like just big picture guy.
So you
in big picture
like 90s. You knew that was 90s country.
Yes, that's where I could go. I could name a few of the words in the song. I probably have been at a bar or somewhere and heard it and enjoyed it.
Have you ever karaoke that song?
I'm not, dude. As good as my voice sounds on this, Paulie, I'm terrible at karaoke, bro. I lose like how to create voice inflection. Okay. I feel like you would be pretty good.
I'm terrible at singing. If I do a karaoke, it's more than likely going to be a rap song of some sort.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever actually karaokeed a real song with like where you have to actually sing. I've only karaokeed rap songs. So I don't.
It's funny. I've been out at places and had a few cocktails, and you should be very loosened up. And as soon as I got on the stage to sing, and like it's almost like blue lights, behind. Like I just immediately all that looseness left me. Yeah. And it was like, oh, I was very aware of how bad I was. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing, Brian. You know this. I don't drink, so this was a very mindful decision that I made when I hopped up on stage.
Yeah. That's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It's fine.
It is. And you don't really have I feel like you can sing though, man. You got good voice. No, I'm surprised to hear that.
So I think I've shared this with you, and I can't remember if I've shared it on the pod, but in middle school, that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be in a hip hop, R&B. Belle Biv DeVoe, Boys to Men, Shy, Jodeci, that ilk of singer.
I feel like with the speakers, yeah. You could have done that. Like you can recall lyrics. I feel like you probably could have come up with some lyrics. Very white boy lyrics, but good lyrics.
So one of my best friends in middle school, Scott Peg, he and I did start a rap group, or we were in a rap group. We called ourselves Too Much. The number 2, the word much. He was DJ Spiff. I was Ice Cold. We had one song. We recorded it like on my Fisher Price cassette thing.
Do you still have it?
No, I don't have the tape. It was on tape. We were doing like cassette. No, it was on my boombox because we had the dual cassette.
Yeah.
And then it was a Fisher Price record player is what I had. And we were like scratching up an old Alvin the Chipmunks Christmas record. So yeah, Too Much. We lasted. I mean, we're still really good friends through, high school. Then he moved, but
you made it. I mean, obviously that didn't ruin your relationship. Sometimes those groups break up and don't ever reconcile. Maybe I think like this you guys were humble.
I think he was just spending the night at my house one weekend, like a sleepover, and we were just mixing up some songs. It was to the beat of Candyman's Knockin' Boots. So that was the beat that we laid out.
Hey, let's go back to something that you mentioned. Like
Deion Sanders? Are we talking about Deion?
Well, we should have mentioned that, but I want to go back to Chipmunks real quick.
Okay.
Essentially, they're just sped up, right? Somebody really thinks that they speed it up, then slow it down to make it sound like that.
Is that how they do it?
Yeah, that's how they do it. Yeah. They speed it up. That's how you get that. And then they slow it back down and record. And it's interesting though. I mean, I was a huge fan of Chipmunks. But back to Deion.
Yeah.
I don't see him, you correct me if I'm wrong, I see him kind of as a culture builder within the confines of the college, like mentor. I don't see him as an NFL CEO. I see him as a father figure, an uncle you respect a lot. I don't see him as CEO, but obviously he's worn a lot of hats. He probably could do it. But
yeah, I think that's a fair assessment especially now when you see Deion at Colorado, you do see him as more of that mentor kind of coach. I'm sure he's fine with X's and O's, but it feels like you said, kind of like Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame. He's there building culture, creating a program. Whereas in the NFL, and I'm sure he could handle the NFL.
No question. No question.
But I don't know. But again, Mike Tomlin, that's what he's done in Pittsburgh for all those years, right?
Yeah, he's done a great job. I feel like Dan
Dan
in
Campbell up in Detroit, done the same
Detroit's a
thing.
culture builder. Nobody's going to him and being like, what's the X? He just, again, I think the leadership is not necessarily the same. The same thing that makes you a good coordinator probably don't make you a great head coach. That's really just going to be interesting if some of these coordinators go, Ben Johnson, and end up in different situations. And how would that look? Because just because you're a good coordinator doesn't mean that you're a good leader of entire teams.
Yeah. And I think some of that is you have to give up some of that responsibility as well, because we've seen coordinators go to be head coaches and they still want to call plays and be really involved in the game. But it's tougher to do because you're managing a lot of different things, right? You're having to pull guys aside and talk to them. And then maybe maybe you're missing calling a play, something like that, right? So there's a lot more that goes into being that head coach than being just totally locked in on the offense or defense or special teams. So
no question. No
it's
question. How about Vrabel? So Vrabel and Mayo obviously played together. I would imagine they crossed over some, right?
I think Mayo came on towards the end of Vrabel's career. Yeah. So
even though he obviously got the job, it feels like, again, they didn't give Mayo a fair shot. There's no question. That's 1 year is not a fair shot. It has to be. I wonder how he feels. Like Mayo has to feel slighted because he never really. I don't think he ever had a real contract. It was like it was never ironed out exactly what it was going to look like, and now Vrabel comes in there. Everybody's super excited about it, but it's like, I don't know. It's I don't think it's an automatic. You go up to the Pats because you had some success with the Titans. You won when you were there as a player. I don't think it's automatic. You go and win just because Vrabel is with the Pats now, even though optimism is off the chain.
I mean, he's bringing back some of that championship lore, right? It'd be like if Gronk or Tom Brady came back to coach one of those teams. He was such an integral part of that and such a part of that culture for so many years. I think there's there's great vibes coming out of that, right? I don't think you didn't get that same feeling from Gerard Mayo at all. So I think he comes in. He won a little bit in Tennessee.
Yeah.
But again, the thing we look at is like, who's his quarterback going to be? That plays such a huge role. I mean, you can get by some different ways, putting together a good defense. We've seen good defenses take teams to championships and win championships with, I guess, obviously the most glaring examples like the 2001 Ravens with that great defense, and then they had Trent Dilfer as the quarterback. So, but Trent Dilfer was also a veteran at that time. Wasn't a young guy like Drake May. And again, Drake May showed some flashes of being pretty good. But, can he put it together for a consistent amount of time? And then again, if you look at the AFC right now, I mean, look at the three teams that are left, or three of the four, or actually the four, right? You got Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and CJ Stroud, who's proving to be, a winner. Is Drake May going to jump any of those three or four guys next year?
No, it's going to take something else.
And then you've got guys like Joe Burrow in there as well, who had a pretty decent year, but didn't get the.
Oh yeah, he had a phenomenal year. I think if he makes the playoffs, he jumps, like his chance to really make MVP goes up extremely high because of what he did and how many games he lost early on, 41, 43 or whatever. I mean, he lost so many games when they scored more than 30 points. I think it's going to be interesting just to hear, like, there's so much optimism whenever you hire a new coach. Here with the Panthers, this is our first year in a long time we haven't been either considering or hiring a new coach. And so there's optimism after going 5-12, which is hard. But,
absolutely.
It's for these programs and for these teams that are hiring coaches, it is a really difficult, a really fun time to be a fan. It hadn't been a fun time the whole year though.
Yeah, it brings optimism, brings hope, and I mean that's all you can have at that point, right? With all the openings and seeing some kind of fun names out there, right? Pete Carroll out there, Is I think, I mean, older than you expected, and that he looks like he's in great shape, but he's actually what, mid 70s. Bill Belichick's name's being bounced around again to pull him out of Carolina.
I think he's content with his
Yeah, I
younger.
think he's fine there, but that
Yeah,
name's floating around there as well. And then the offensive and defensive coordinators who a couple of those we mentioned already, and then Mike McCarthy, right? It feels like Mike McCarthy is going to get one of those job openings as well after.
I don't know, man. I mean, I may be wrong on this. Like, I feel like you get like one retread. Like whenever you think about tires that you see the tractor trailers go down the road, you can do one retread on those. You try to do it twice, then you end up having one blow off and go and kill. It doesn't work, right? And so I think you get one retread. I think Mike McCarthy. I may be wrong. But I don't think he gets another. I wouldn't, like, if I'm a franchise, I'm not super excited to get Big Mike, even though everybody who's played for him and has coached with him has spoke highly of him.
Yeah.
I don't, maybe the Bears, that he's he's competent. You feel like you got something special with Williams there, but he doesn't really excite me. Like if we were at the Panthers looking for another head coach again, their 4th in 5 years or whatever the number is, he wouldn't be like, oh yeah, that's going to work out.
That's my guy. Yeah. Interesting. So a couple other stories. One that I kind of find interesting. So Patrick and Brittany Mahomes had their 3rd child. Brian's not feeling
and it's ridiculous that you know this.
So here's
all right. You're gonna bring it up. I've got my next story after this. You can bring up the next story.
I had my first child during a baseball season. You do all you can to prepare for it, and you want to be a good father and the whole thing. For me, I didn't realize how much of a toll it physically took out of me. Like I didn't give birth to the child, but I was spent. And man, it took me a while to catch up on my sleep. And as an athlete, you have to have your rest. You have to be ready for that. Again, I'm honestly just kind of curious to see how Mahomes performs this coming weekend, knowing that, I mean, that's, again, it's a wonderful and amazing thing to have a child, but at the same time, it does take a toll out of you. You do lose sleep. There are different things that are going on in your life. So
I think when you're at that level, Brittany has the baby.
You've got some babies. Yeah, you're not.
You bring some
money or AAA money. Yeah, you're making real. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not. I don't think Patrick's missing any sleep.
Okay.
I may be wrong on that too. I think Patrick is sleeping like a baby. Maybe he, gives the baby a kiss as he's going out the door or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever the situation is. I think for minority, yes, a big difference, right? Your wife has to take care of it. You feel some responsibility because you contributed to this situation, right? Hopefully. And so if you didn't, you got other problems that you got to deal with. But I think Patrick, I mean, first of all, it's not his first, it's his 3rd. He's won.
He's a vet.
He's had those other 2 kids. And so he's doing some things right. Maybe those so if you go back, you go back 9 months from now, in the off season, seems like he's probably having a good time somewhere in a warm climate.
Yeah. So they did name the baby Golden Ray, Raye. So Golden Ray. So I mean, maybe Patrick.
So ridiculous that you know any of this.
It's out there. It's online. You can find it.
All right. I got my story then. I got my story.
Let's hear it.
The Falconer. All right. So the Falconer, I know whoever listened to this virgin ears a little bit. I'm just going to hit why he got fired, why it's a story. Then I think it's funny that Falconeers aren't discussed and their skills aren't discussed more, because I think it's an interesting just occupation, right? Falconer got fired because he had a penis implant. He exposed himself online, so he got fired from being a Falconer. Not a great way to get fired.
Let's explain this a little further. He was a Falconer for a European football league, so a soccer team. So the nickname of the team, I'm assuming, was the Falcons.
It is a soccer. Hey, Paulie, it is a soccer team.
Yeah, so I said football, but I meant soccer.
Yeah.
We're in the United States, so to all of our European listeners, football.
Hey, I think we got one in Germany. We got
a German listener. Yeah. So again, to a little more context to the story, not just a random Falconeer. This is a
No,
sports
not a
title.
random Falconeer.
So the
You
nickname
probably
of the
get
team.
fired if you expose yourself. Anyway, go ahead, Paulie. I'm
So
sorry.
the nickname of the team was the Falcons, and he had the big glove, and yeah, the Falcon flew around, and he held his arm out, and the Falcon came back to him. So yeah, had it said in the article a prosthetic penis. Does that mean
Yeah.
was it detachable? Is this a how much do you know about this, Brian? You're the one that wanted to talk about it.
I just read a little bit of the article. I didn't get into the pictures or anything.
There's no
But
pictures.
I
Was
would
there
say
a
it's probably
video?
not. I would say it's not detachable, right? It's probably almost like women and breast implants. I don't know if you've been around those situations. They're pretty open to willing to show them off as well.
Okay.
And so I think it's probably like, hey, look how good it looks. It still looks like the right shape, size. And I don't know, maybe
Does it?
he
It
had
doesn't
like
like a dog leg left or anything. It's
right. I mean, I'm sure you have options, right? When you go in there, like, hey, do I want it doing this? Do I
give
want
me.
it going a
He's
little
like, give me like the Arby's curly fry, like this.
bit like a pig, you know?
Yeah,
And so,
pigtail.
yeah, and so I wasn't necessarily going. That is hilarious because I'm sure there are options with that, and maybe limitations, maybe something that determines what you are able to do or would like to do. But I was going. I was more interested in Falconeer as
Oh,
a profession. Like,
could that be a full-time profession?
oh, I think it is. I think it is. I don't think you can do that part time. Can you
You
be a
go to
Falconeer part time?
what do you do? Like go to birthday parties and like company events?
I feel like there's got to be like, yes. First of all, I would love if I could hire a Falconeer, or like when my kids had birthday parties when they were younger, like invite all the guests over. How awesome would it have been? Like, hey, come to young boy, 3-year-old, 2-year-old, 5-year-old birthday party. We're bringing a Falconeer. He's gonna go out and eat things. He's gonna send him out. We're gonna
Let
release
some mice
rats.
go. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna release mice, and then he's gonna go and let the Falconeer falcon.
We ran a park event at one point with my oldest, and she was probably 8 or 9, and they were releasing some birds. It may have been falcons into like they had rehabilitated these birds. And I guess we read about it in the paper, and we went to the park that day, and there was kind of a gathering. And so they had these 2 birds in cages, and they were big,
Yeah.
like falcon type birds. And so they released the first one, and everybody wanted to see it fly and soar, and just it literally flew like 30 yards to the first tree and just perched in the tree. And we were like,
Uh,
that was
a
kind
little
of
disappointed.
underwhelming. And then the second one, that was the showman of the birds. It
Yeah.
it took off, flapped its wings, soared into the air, and it was ooh. And the other dumb bird was just sitting in the tree. So
Well, he was
I would
relaxing.
if you told
I,
me you had a falconeer coming to I like because we as a young parent we got invited to a lot of birthday parties,
yeah,
and it
yeah,
was
yeah. And a lot
typically
of them are.
I was gonna say it's a lot of bounce houses and jump places and trampoline parks, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Which
and it's not really associated for you. Hey, we did one though. We brought over like this guy who brought over these exotic animals.
you did a
Like,
party like this?
yeah. I did a party like this, and he had like maybe some snakes and maybe some little creatures, little bunnies, and different things. And
This was just a
the
random
snake.
guy. No, this was just a guy in your neighborhood. He just
No. I
took you.
wish. I
You were
wish.
fleeced.
Yeah, but it was probably our best little birthday party, and so yeah, I was. I think anybody who trains birds, like I've been to funerals and like they release doves, and it's
Yeah.
like I'm not sure. It's kind of I don't know if you've been to one of those funerals before. It feels weird a little bit, like the doves like didn't really want to fly, like they hadn't been trained well, they hadn't been able to fly. Maybe they've been in a box too long. Some of
I
those
did
things are concerns.
yeah, I did. We did have one of my daughters had a teammate whose mother did that with butterflies.
Oh yeah.
So I guess I don't know if she bred butter. I don't know how they butterflies mate or whatever, but she would sell butterflies to people. And same thing for funerals and weddings and birthdays, and they would
That
release
would
them.
be an interesting thing to put up on like LinkedIn. What butterfly salesman?
Yeah, I don't know if it's. I guess you do the sales and
You do that and slash Falconeer, you got something. Like I would
Maybe.
again
Yeah.
back to like, wouldn't it be awesome? Like I've seen these videos. There's videos of this guy who has a looks like a falcon. It
I
rides
know
on
what
his
kind of videos
arm.
you were watching. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't the prosthetic kind of
Okay, it was
videos.
the
It was
Falcon videos. Okay.
yeah. So the falcon will get on his arm. He takes his little mask off because I guess when their mask is they can see and
Beak.
they
Yeah,
would
sharp
want to
beak.
attack. And he throws him out the window. He'll go eat like a squirrel and come back in.
Yeah.
And dude, it's incredible, dude.
So,
I just think that talent is just underappreciated.
so in the minor leagues, you get a lot of kind of kooky promotions and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And met a lot of interesting people. I met one of the Lollipop Guild from the Wizard of Oz one year. Met George the
I heard
Animal Steele.
I heard a lot of them were mean. Have you heard
He was
that
a
about
nice
the
guy.
lollipop?
Yeah, no, he was a
Yeah.
nice guy. Lollipop Guild guys. George the
How
Animal
tall?
Steele,
How tall?
like 2.5 foot. Like he was a small person.
Yeah.
And, but so one year I was in Altoona, and they brought Punxsutawney Phil out,
Oh, dude,
the
this is
groundhog.
awesome. Yeah.
And so
Great movie.
as a starting pitcher, you don't have a ton to do when days you're not pitching. So I like to go out and catch the first pitches. I like to wave to the crowd, kind of goof a little bit.
Showmanship.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little showmanship. But I thought
You're the show off bird. I'm more the bird in the background. You're the show off bird.
Well,
I
you
go
were out
climb
there
a tree.
actually warming up to
Yeah.
play the game and get ready. I was doing a chart, So anyway, so Punxsutawney Phil, his handler was throwing out the first pitch. The etiquette is catch the ball, hold the ball in your glove for the guy to grab it, and then you extend your right hand to shake his hand.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Right? And so I go through, and he goes, "Hey, whoa." And I was like, "Okay." I said, "Hey, can I pet Punxsutawney Phil?" I thought no, he will claw your arm. And I was like, "Oh." And then I looked, and he was holding, similar to like that Falconer glove, he was holding Punxsutawney Phil in a big, thick, like elbow.
So he's not a willing. What is
I think-
Punxsutawney Phil? What kind of creature is he?
It's a groundhog. Yeah, so it's a groundhog. And again, I think a lot of these animals, like your falconer, I think they have special relationships with the bird or the groundhog or whatever it is. And again, I think it's a lot of time and effort to do something like that.
That's what I'm saying. Underappreciated. The people like the eagle flies around.
Oh, the eagle flying is the coolest thing. Yeah, that is the
Yeah.
bald eagle. Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah.
Brings back visions. Yeah, clearly like 9/11 was a terrible time, but there's some images that are just burnt into your head, and one of that is the eagle on 9/11. George Bush throwing the first pitch on Yankee Stadium, but that always gets you when the bald eagle's flying around the stadium. So, well, all right. So maybe at one of our Wright Stew podcast events, we'll have a Falconer, and
dude, if we oh gosh, that's gonna be a live event. Hey, speaking of live events, Paulie.
Yes.
So we're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, we're on these different places. TikTok, when you get on late at night, or not even that late, right? Like 9-10 o'clock, it's all live events on TikTok. I'm confused by that situation.
Well,
why
TikTok
you can't
could
just
be going away in 5 days, so we don't know what's going on with TikTok. But yeah, I've seen some of those scrolling through, and honestly, never looked at TikTok until we started doing this podcast, and then we got on the platform to promote this podcast. But I have seen those recently, and it's just people sitting there staring at their. I don't understand. Like, and then they have little captions on there. Let's mingle. Yeah.
Like you can see the rose, like a virtual rose, and it's like, dude, what have we come to, man? It's bizarre. And like I've stayed on one and just stood there for a while. The person didn't say anything. It's like, thank you for your donation. Thank you. And it's like, dude, what are you doing to earn this money? And I don't know. I was really impressed by the number of people that were on there. At least it shows like how many people are supposedly watching this person do nothing. And they're getting donations, right? And so, I don't know if
here's the question.
Here's
the question: if TikTok ends up sticking around, if Mr. Beast or Elon Musk buys it, would anybody out there want to see Brian and I on a live TikTok feed Maybe in speaker studio, just hanging out. We'll answer questions. Yeah, within
Yes.
range. We're not going to get too crazy, but we'll keep it. PG
I'll get
13.
wherever we need to
We'll keep
go,
it
and
PG
Paul will
13,
keep it
Brian. We'll keep
PG.
it PG
Yeah.
13.
I was going to say you can. Hey, you're a PG guy, and you're a beautiful soul. I'll definitely go PG-13. But I would say if hey, what do you think TikTok is worth? Like we had talked about. I know it's for sale now. I know you looked up some different things. What would you be willing to pay for TikTok? You know,
Well,
if you had
knowing the balance in
$100 billion.
my check account, there's no way I'm coming close to anything that it's valued at. Like I've seen estimates anywhere from 20 to $100 billion. I don't
Insane,
know
bro.
what you get with that. I mean, Elon Musk bought Twitter, now X, for 44 billion. I mean, it just must be
And
nuts.
and I think he would say he overpaid,
Yeah.
but he did the world a favor. But
Yeah,
anyway,
well, and he said he did a lot of it for democracy and for free speech and a lot of different things. So he's his motives were, I think, different than others, and he has the ability to make those sort of purchases. So it's, yeah, again, it's good being Elon Musk from that perspective, at least having a lot of money in your wallet. So yeah, I don't, if I had to put a number on it, I don't. I guess I
but
try to
hey,
lowball him. I don't know.
let me ask it this way, right? Is it more valuable in your mind? Again, we're one person, two people, obviously, because it's 1+1. But in your mind, is TikTok more valuable than X?
I think it's definitely two different audiences that are on each platform.
Yeah,
X feels a little more mature, a little older, a little more news focused. TikTok feels very young, very, yeah, even middle through high school, early 20s.
yeah,
When you're scrolling through each, that it's two different feeds, two different
yeah.
algorithms completely. So honestly, I think with that in mind, TikTok is probably worth more because
Yeah.
you've got this generation. So you look back in our generation, the first real popular social media was MySpace. I think MySpace is focused on musicians now more than anything. It
I
was
didn't know it was still a thing.
I think
Yeah.
it's its own thing. I think somebody may have bought it, but there's so many of these social media platforms. And again, if you would have said in 2006, 7, like, oh, MySpace, that's going to be around forever. It's not, clearly. Is TikTok going to be around forever? Probably not. Facebook was all the rage for a little while, but now Facebook is mostly 35, 40-year-olds
But I
into
would
the older
say, I mean,
generation. So,
well, Meta, you look at their earnings, they're making big money on those advertisements
yeah.
because, you're 25 to 60-year-olds that are probably on there and maybe older, maybe a bit younger. They're the ones who generally have disposable income.
Yeah.
And that would be my only argument for TikTok, maybe not being as valuable, but there's probably a whole lot more users
It's
on
like 1
TikTok.
billion users is what I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you end up getting to a point though, if all the users or a lot of the users are just people hanging out live, and it's like not saying anything or anything productive, I'm not real sure what we're getting out of this, dude.
Yeah.
I don't know at least on X. You get on X and see all kinds. You can see political, you can see friends, you can find scores, you can do everything on X. TikTok, I'm not real sure the value other than just waste
Just
time.
entertainment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm again.
Well, it's
I
essentially,
won't have to make those decisions on whether to buy it or not. Unfortunately.
well, those are the positive sides of not having, $100 billion. It's interesting that it's for sale and they're being forced to sell, and it seems like they're willing to sell for the right money. And then the other thing is, like you said, how much is it really worth? But if you all these people are doing lives, there's clearly some value there somewhere that we are not. Again, it's the Instagram. Instagram kind of came on the backside of, hey, where you're trying to be more socially aware and connected to your friends that way. A lot of guys and girls younger, they Snapchat and do all these other things. TikTok's a thing for entertainment, but it is interesting to see where this goes for sure.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's going to be real interesting where these coaches land, circling it back around to
Yeah.
sports,
So there we go.
and circling back around to the Falconer. Does the Falconer find another job? There's only so many of those guys. I feel like he's going to find another job.
Hey, maybe
a lawsuit.
Maybe he moves to Atlanta.
Yeah, I've never seen a Falconer there. It feels like they would need a Falconer. I'm sure
they may have one. I've never been to a Falcons game in Atlanta. I've been to a Falcons game, but it was in Phoenix. So,
okay.
So speaking of the socials, make sure you follow us on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, X. Keep listening on Apple Pod, Spotify, iHeartRadio, anywhere you can find podcasts. We appreciate that. And then again, we mentioned we've got our 50th episode coming up real soon. Make sure you stay tuned for that. We got a big announcement to make on that episode. So be ready for that. And we appreciate you listening today. We were a little all over the place, but we had a little fun. So we appreciate you listening today. Enjoy the day.
Out. Go Pack.